first line is clear for you. So always the program starts with the header file #include within the tag of stdio.h. We have several header files from the standard library. We are going to perform some mathematical operations, math library, string.h, and a lot of header files are there. But basic header file is stdio.h. So the same header file for while loop also. Data type. So we have several data types. You will see one by one: integer, float, character, and all. So basic data type is integer. So for integer, int is the short term. Okay. So you have to give the int, the short term of integer. Okay. So you have to give int. So this is the body of the program. So first data type along with the program start the main function. So main. So once we start the program, right, within the body of the function, we have to represent the curly braces. So within this, we have to give some data or execute the code, right? So before going to see this, you should know what is the syntax for and what is the syntax for while. Okay. So before going to see this, we have to know the syntax of for. So in and then updation. Okay. So once within the for loop, so which data type you get, the same variable you have to give it here. That's it. So next one of the entry controller loop is while loop, right? So we'll see the syntax for while loop here. So while syntax is while giving the condition and then loop gets start and then ends. You guys are thinking for loop we have initialization and then condition and then operation. Every three terms are given. But in while loop only one thing will be given as condition. But everything is there. Initialization is there, operation is there, but different lines. But while we have to just mention as condition. We will see the program as example. So always the starting line of the program is fixed, that is header file. So as include. So I mentioned we have different header files, but here we are going to give which header file? Standard input output. The short form is STD for standard, for input I and output O is the extension of header file. Okay, and then we are going to start with the main function. So use the data type as integer and then main program. Once get started. So in for loop, the initialization is within the for loop, correct? But in while, initialization is done before the while loop. Okay. So before while loop, you should initialize the variable. Which variable you want? Along with that, you have to assign the value. So which value is going to start from 1. Okay. And then next. Now we go to the loop, that is while loop. And within this, we have to given as condition. Which condition? So the I value prints up to the value 5, right? So I less than or equal to 5. So this also when now only loop gets started. So within that, the same thing for loop, what is given, print statement given, right? The same thing have to given as print. Printer for output. Here I represents for integer. Integer means percentage D you have to give it. So and one more thing, if you are giving /n for the next line, that is new line or next line. If you want the output in next line or new line, you have to mention /n within the codes, because here C is the case sensitive and which value is going to be printed, that is I. Okay. So ending with here. Okay. Next, here it is initialization. Okay. Initialize the variable. This is condition. Now you guys have an idea for loop what is the syntax, initialization, condition and then updation, right? For while also all three terms are there in different lines. So initialization is done before the while loop. Condition is done along with the while loop. So updation after the print statement. So which updation you want? That is increment, because you need the output as from 1 till 5. So you need increment. So I plus plus. Okay. So program gets over. The while loop we start and then we close it. But main function will close it, right? Definitely it shows some error. So once we start the curly braces, definitely we have to close it. Okay. So once we close it. Because once program gets started, header file should be the first line of the program. So primary standard have to use the header file as stdio.h. You guys know the expansion is std is nothing but standard, I is nothing but input, o is nothing but output, and .h is extension of header file. Next. So you guys know HTML standard. L and D is nothing but library. Okay, library extension is LIB. Okay, and then so string.h for using this string based program, you have to use the header file string.h. Suppose you are using any mathematical operations like addition, subtraction, power, square root, modulus, division, whatever, any mathematical operation, you have to use the header file as mathline.h or else math.h is fine. Okay. So these kind of header files are there. So which header file you want, you have to use this. So next, once we start with the header file, move the next part is data types. For integer, I represent as int. So using the format specifier as %d. Okay, and then character using char. For character, using term as char, represent as %c. And then string. So str. Percentage yes, and then float. So what's the meaning of float? Most probably you guys know about it. Suppose my values is in decimal 45.345 something. Okay, so after decimal you have to read the numbers, not the whole number. So 45.345. Suppose your answer is in decimal, that time you have to use float. Whenever you have to use a mathematical operation, then you have to write as float. Okay, so you have to use percentage here. Okay. Next one is double. Suppose your value after decimal point is too much of longer, that time you have to use this double. So long float. So double as long float. Suppose your value is 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. After decimal, the value places should be 8 digits. That time you have to use percentage LF. Clear? So these kind of data types you have to use in C. And basic few terms, we need output means definitely we have to give some input. Okay, we need some output. Definitely we have to give some input, feed in the program. Okay. So output, which term we are using in C, that is printf. Because we are going to display the statement. For that, we have to use the term as printf. have to input info. So I need two variables because they give the input as 2. They given the input as 2. For that I need two variables. So you have to give any two variables starting from A to Z. Okay. But it should be consecutive terms. You have to give A means A comma B. You have to start with X means X comma Y. It should be consecutive terms. So I can start with L means L and M. Okay. So two number input, they have to use the operation as addition. So using once we add the number, the value should be stored in one of the term, like this output term or some. We can do the term as sum. So what is the program? Sum of two numbers. So this thing you know. So only again you go to the line, the header file. You know already. And one thing you should know, the always output statement, printf statement should come first. It only follows by input statement as scanf. Okay. So here printf statement is what we want to do, because here I just assign declare the variable as L and M. I did assign the value for corresponding variables. The value should get from the output stream. Value should get from the output stream. So you have to mention as enter two numbers. Suppose we assign the value for L and M. No need to give the printf line. We have to give the printf line, but the statement as differs, the sum of two numbers. But here the input is not given. We just declare the variable for input. We get the input values in the term of display screen. Okay? So next scanf for getting the input. So which term we have to use for data type is integer. For integer you have to mention as percentage D. So here how many variables I mentioned? L and M. Then you have to mention the percentage D for twice. So this ampersand similarly get the thing. So here the one is L, right? L and then so given the, so always L plus M is equal to sum. But in program coding, you have to mention the output first and then declare the input. So sum is equal to L plus M, ending with semicolon is compulsory. Okay. So again we have to give the printf statement, because this printf for getting the input from the user, and next printf for display the output. Okay. Okay. So which term we have to call? Sum term we have to call. Okay, sum. And the last line you guys know, that is return 0. So now you guys have the idea about it. So that is sum of two numbers. Okay, for that the first line is header file, and then we start with the main function. So main function want to start with data type. Declare two variables. Then output should be stored in the third variable as sum. So related to the program I gave it as sum. So instead of sum we can give any x, y, whatever it is you want. Okay. This printf for getting the input from the user. This scanf feeding the input, and then which operation, addition operation, we just add these two variables. That value should be stored in sum. not visible in the screen. They did the operation behind the screen. Okay. So 5 plus 50 is 20. The next line sum. So sum is equal to, because you mentioned as equal to, right? You are given equal to, in output screen also it shows us equal. So 5 plus 20. So plus 20. So within the double quotation, what are the things we are given? The same thing is will be displayed in output screen. Okay. So enter two numbers we are given. The same thing is displayed. Next sum is equal to percentage d. Not percentage d is printed. Instead of percentage d, which value stores? First percentage d have the value as 5. Right? The next percentage d value as what value given? 15. Okay. So 5 plus 15 is 20. So 20 should be displayed here. Yep. Like that few from program we will see one by one. So next small program we are going to see is whether the number is even or odd. Okay. So now you guys know first two lines of the program. What is the first line? That is header file. The second line is main function. So once main function, you have to start the program. Okay. So before going to the program, we should know the basic term, this random methodology of the even and odd numbers. So numbers starting from 1 to n numbers. The whole number starting from 0 to n numbers. Correct? Okay. So the even numbers, you guys know about it. This 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 are even numbers. Okay, then what about the odd numbers? 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 are odd numbers. Okay, so user giving any one of the number that is divisible by 2, is divisible by 2, you get the remainder 0, then it belongs to even number. Okay, so user giving any one of the number is divided by 2, you get the remainder as 1. Okay, then it belongs to odd number. This is remainder. I will give an example. Suppose I feed the input as 5. I want to know whether the 5 is even or odd. So 5 divided by 2. Okay, you doesn't know how to do it. 5 is a divider, 2 is a divisor. So 2 times is 4, balance 1. So the remainder is 1. If you have the remainder is 1, then it belongs to, it is odd number. Suppose I am feeding this 18. The input as 18. Okay, 18 divided by 2. So definitely you will get the remainder 0. Then it belongs to even number. Okay. So once we feed any one of the program, you guys know the manual methodology behind the program. Then only it will be clear about the codings. Okay. So now we start with the header file and then main function and all. Okay. So here it is a number, right? So in number. So always you have to start with the printf statement, because in output screen only they have to give the number. So enter the integer or enter the number. Okay, it's up to your wish. Within the double quotation, it's up to your wish. Enter the number or enter the integer, whatever it is. Okay. So now you guys have to answer it. So here I mentioned as character, this percentage is C. I mentioned as string, this percentage yes. Clear? So now here I am going to use it if you whether the number, so whether this or that means you have to use the numbers if. So if number is divided by 2 is equal to 0. So if it is it, you will get the remainder as 0, it belongs to even or else it is odd. Okay. So print the percentage D is even. So you have to close the if loop as well as you have to close the first main function. Clear? This program is clear? So suppose you will give the input as 6 divided by 2 will get the remainder as 0. You will get the output